Hi guys, today I had the pleasure of interviewing Molly from NUTRISENSE, a company that provides continuous glucose monitors, which is a device that you wear in your arm, and that way you are able to track your blood sugar in real time without having to poke your finger every time. It's a great tool and device for people with PCOS, insulin resistance, diabetes, pre-diabetes, and even for people who just want to optimize their health and their blood sugar. Like, I've tried it a couple times and it's just so cool to see what foods my body responds to and what causes a spike in blood sugar, and that way I really know how my body responds and what changes to make. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you love it, please make sure you subscribe, share it with your friends, and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please make sure to leave it in the comments so we can get back to you and make more videos just like this one, where I'll continue to interview experts in the health and wellness field so that you continue to learn and improve your own health. So, see you there.
Yeah, so my name is Molly Downey. I am one of the nutrition managers at NutriSense. We are a health technology company, and we leverage continuous glucose monitors to help our members and clients reach their greatest health potential. So we pretty much just put a preventative lens on the technology that we're using, so the CGM device, so that we can help others just really optimize their health through the different foods, the activity, the sleep, stress. All these different factors play up in the CGM data. So we're just working with our members to hopefully optimize their health in the long run.
Awesome. Yeah. So before we go into CGMs and what they do and what they are, I mean, they're very useful for diabetes and blood sugar. So can you talk a little bit about what is diabetes, like what causes it? Like, some people may have it, not know they have it. So let's start there.
Yeah, definitely. So most people that historically were using the CGM device were those who did have diabetes. So either type 1 diabetics or type 2. We at NutriSense, we don't work with type 1 diabetics. We only work with those who do have type 2 diabetes and just a generally healthy population. So if someone is using the CGM device, if you do have diabetes, what you're doing is you're using it to regulate your blood sugar levels. So when we eat something, for example, say that you eat a banana, when that digests into your system and absorbs, then your glucose levels or your blood sugar rises within the body. And this is a normal response. What we want to happen is that after that, the glucose does rise, our pancreas, it releases insulin. It's a hormone. And that hormone allows for the glucose to enter into the cell and be utilized as energy. So once that glucose enters in, then your blood sugar levels start to come back down. So if you can kind of think of it visually as like you would see on a graph, you would see that spike in blood sugar, and then the insulin allows it into the cell, and then it'll come back down. So that's ideally what we're looking for. If you have diabetes or poor blood sugar regulation, then what we typically see in the data is that if you have a higher response from eating that banana, for example, your body may have more difficulty allowing that glucose into your cell to be utilized. So you may have a higher glucose response, and it may be prolonged out for a longer period of time. So what we're looking for is, we look at different thresholds for how high we want those spikes to go. So typically for the normal, or the general population, that is not in the disease state of, having diabetes, then the upper threshold is 140 milligrams per deciliter. So ideally, we don't want to be going beyond that point consistently or on a consistent basis. But if you have diabetes, then, we typically will set a higher threshold. So you may have higher responses to, the same food. Say, I have diabetes and, you have great blood sugar regulation. We may eat the exact same food and I may respond, much higher. Say my blood sugar spikes to like 200, where yours only spikes to like 113. So we see the different responses there. So again, ideally, the overview is that we don't want to see these responses going beyond threshold and staying in those higher glucose ranges for an extended period of time. So when, our body has regulatory processes, so with like pH, with temperature, glucose is one of them as well. So when we're hitting these higher ranges, our body responds by trying to get them back into normal ranges. So that's ideally what we're looking for. But with, the diabetes state, it's typical to have just higher glucose values in general. So so just fasting levels. So that's what your glucose levels are when you wake up in the morning. So, after 8 hours of sleep or not eating for, that period of time, we see fasting levels are generally higher for those who do have diabetes than, the generally healthy individual. So, we see all these trends play out in the glucose data that we're looking at. So again, where most people, when they hear of CGMs, they're thinking of, those who have diabetes looking to regulate their blood sugar levels. And again, as I mentioned earlier, what we're doing is we're just putting a different lens on it, because even though, I don't have diabetes, I can still have a poor response to a food that my body is not, doesn't respond well to or doesn't process well. So then I can see, okay, maybe I can tweak it or modify how I'm eating that food and try to optimize the response so I'm not having those persistent hits on my metabolism that can promote less ideal results.
It sounds like the two main things are how much it spikes and how long that spike remains high, like how long it takes for your body to bring it back down after the food. So those are that's kind of where also the CGM is valuable, because it allows you to see, and CGM stands for continuous glucose monitor, and we can talk a little bit about what it is, but it sounds like what matters a lot is not having as much of a spike and also how long it remains. Okay.
So if you think about it, where say most people will respond to carbohydrates and foods, but again, the idea is that we want to keep it below that threshold on a consistent basis. So if I spike very high into that 100, say spike to like 200, for example, and I'm sitting there for an extended period of time, maybe 4 hours, then I am increasing the susceptibility to promote inflammation within the body, oxidative stress, cellular damage. So these things all occur when your glucose levels are sitting in those higher ranges out of range. So the longer period of time you're in those higher ranges, the more potential damage, can be done within the body. So that's why if you do have a high spike, you want it to come back down sooner. So ideally we look for within that 2 to 3 hour period. So if it's like, if you have a spike, come back down within 2 to 3 hours, then your body should be, or your blood sugar should be back at the pre-meal values at that time. So it's trying to regulate that.
Yeah. And you also talked about how someone with diabetes and someone without they both eat the same food, but for diabetes it spikes and for the other person it doesn't. Why is that? Like, why does a person with diabetes is more sensitive to some foods than someone?
So there are a lot of factors in play. One of the greatest underlying factors are insulin resistance. So it's our body's resistance to insulin and the effects it has on the body. So where, as I was describing earlier, so you eat that banana, your insulin is released and it allows for that blood sugar to enter into the cell. Insulin resistance develops over time. So we have abnormalities within how our body's utilizing that insulin. It either is not excreted in the amounts that we need, or, it's not allowed into the cell. So when those things happen, it makes it so we have more difficulty processing a simple carbohydrate. And it's something that develops over decades. So, It can take a lot of time for that to play out. But other factors that play are, it could be hereditary, it could be lifestyle factors, lack of exercise, the types of food that you're eating, different disease states like PCOS or, anything else that can be going on that can make it so that you have a different response to different foods. So yeah, everyone is different, and that's the beauty of testing it out using the CGM, is to see how you're personally responding to these specific foods, because you really don't know unless you try it out. So
yeah, and with PCOS, we see a lot of insulin resistance. Like I think over 80% of women with PCOS have insulin resistance, so it's definitely something to watch out for. And like you mentioned too, if it takes decades for it to develop, I think it's so useful and such a powerful tool for people who don't have diabetes, like you mentioned earlier, just to know what foods your body responds to, or what foods cause more of a spike for you that you may not know of, even if you don't have diabetes. Because if you don't know, then you might continue eating the food the same way for years, and that contributes to that insulin in the long run.
And I think too, like to add to that, people will have, so if you can see that you're having a poor response to a carbohydrate, for example, where you're spiking very high and you're staying there for an extended period of time. But when we're looking at the trends in data, it's pretty obvious to see if someone is insulin resistant after you're looking at the data for a while. But with, I just lost my train of thought, but when, what we're looking at is, how you're responding and everything. But like, for example, in my case, like I got so interested in this because I was, testing out my own blood sugar, and I actually realized that I did have PCOS, and I found it out after I started testing my blood sugar, because I realized I was having poor responses to the carbohydrates I was eating, and I had high fasting glucose as well. And to me, that was crazy, because I grew up, I always thought I was very healthy. I was an athlete. I played sports. I was very active. I thought I ate well, but, I realized that something was wrong and something was off, and I could identify that through the glucose data. So again, if I, continue to have these persistent spikes that are going beyond threshold over time, that could develop into more serious issues. But since I was able to recognize it, and I can work and tweak how I'm eating and how I'm exercising and how I'm managing my stress and sleep, whatever it is, I can hopefully in the long run, help to mitigate any, issues that could happen later on.
Yeah, so that's so cool so you didn't know you had PCOS, and then you kind of almost learned about it through doing this testing.
Yeah. So I didn't know. All I knew, I had something that was wrong, and I was going to different doctors, and no one could really help me, or no one, just the way it goes. Yeah, but I knew that there was something wrong, so I took it upon myself to figure it out. I started just using the glucose meter, so I was just doing the finger prick, so that's where I recognized that there's something wrong. Then I started using the continuous glucose monitor. I was like, whoa, there's definitely some abnormalities. Like, even comparing to the other dietitians I was working with, I was like, I'm, similar age, similar everything. Like, why am I like hyper responding to all these carbohydrates and foods while, they're not? So probably a few months later, after, convincing my doctor and, sharing this information, I was finally diagnosed with PCOS. And it just was nice to finally have something to explain all the symptoms that I was feeling and all the struggles. So
yeah, because when something's going on but you don't know what it is, it can be like very frustrating. So let's talk about the continuous glucose monitor. I don't know if you have one with you, but what it looks like, how is it different than a glucometer?
Yeah. So essentially the continuous glucose monitor, well, it differs from the glucose meter. So most people know that if you have a glucose meter, you do the finger prick, you can get that one snapshot in time. It'll give you your reading for whenever you took, that finger prick. So it's just like that, that snapshot in time. But the continuous glucose monitor, you apply it to the back of your arm. So we use the Freestyle Libre, and it sounds like an intimidating process. I remember when I first put the first one I had on.
Yeah.
I was nervous. It didn't matter how many people told me that it was fine. I was still nervous about it. But I put it on and you can't, I didn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it continuously picks up on your glucose data for 24 hours a day for a 14-day period. So you get not just that single snapshot in time from the data you're looking at, you get all the data. So you get it when you're sleeping, you get it when you're exercising, you get it when everything's going on. So, you know, say if you're just using a glucose meter and you're out doing something, you're not going to be, you know, testing your blood sugar because the prick hurts and just consuming, and there's a lot that goes on with it. So if you just have the glucose meter or the CGM on, then it's automatically picking up on all of this data. So the way that you're able to visually see it, we have an app that you scan in the glucose data to, so it shows up in graph form. So all that data shows up, so you're able to identify all the trends that are going on with your overnight, your fasting levels, how high you're responding to something, how fast it's coming down. You know, we have scores for everything too. But yeah, essentially you're just, you know, monitoring your levels on a consistent basis to really give you that feedback on what's happening within your body.
Yeah, like you said, it's like way more convenient than a glucometer. Like you can't, or even, I mean, you could poke yourself like every 2 hours, but that takes a lot of time. And also, yeah, you can't always be doing that if you're like driving or like at school or at work. So it isn't like super convenient. And then also with the glucometer, I feel like it was really cool, and I did it too. And it's funny you say like I also was nervous, and when I did it, I wasn't even sure if it was on because I didn't feel it. So I was like, is this on right? Like I thought I was gonna feel something. But yeah, it's like I feel like the experience for everybody's like scared, and then everybody's like, wait, like nothing happened.
Exactly. So there's an applicator, you apply it, it stays on your arm, there's adhesive around it so it sticks, and once it's on, it's on.
And you can shower with it, and you can like work out with it. And I was gonna say like, yeah, so you can see with the glucometer, you can test after maybe 2 hours after you ate, like a person with diabetes would. But what I liked about the glucometer or the CGM was that you could also see how your body responds to like the heat or to stress or to sleep or to meditation or to exercise. So it gives you not only the information about the food, but it also gives you information about you and your life in general and how you're responding to like life, you know?
Exactly. Because for example, say you're stressed out about something, maybe you don't even recognize it in the moment. Last thing you want to do is go, or you're even thinking to do is go test your blood sugar if you're just using a glucose meter. But you know, it happens all the time. Someone's in an interview, someone's in a fight with their spouse, you know, whatever it is that's going on that's promoting that stress. And then they scan in the data to their CGM, and it's like, whoa, there's definitely something that was going on there. And it shows you, you know, even though it's just an acute stress response, if this is happening on a consistent basis, you know, it's something that tells us that, okay, our body, you know, it's something that we need to, you know, begin to regulate and kind of fine tune.
Yeah, and just like the awareness of it. I think it brings awareness to, like, okay, my body doesn't like this kind of experience.
Exactly. Because it's not always, like, you know, it's like, it's diet, it's exercise, it's sleep, it's stress, you know, whatever. Everyone has a different focal point and what's going to help them in achieving their health goals. And I think the CGM can help you identify, you know, whatever it is that you may be blind to. So it's like, I know I respond poorly to stress, and, you know, I can see that play out in my CGM data. So I always tell, you know, when I'm working with someone and I see that play out, it's like, that's just you managing your stress, you building consistency in, you know, whether it's meditation, breathing exercise, going for walks, however you're going to manage your stress, like that's just as important as what you're eating and how much you're exercising, because they all play out in our health in the long run. So
yeah, because again, like, you can be eating well and healthy, and if you're stressed, then your blood sugar is still going to spike and you're still going to have a response to it. So again, like, food matters, and it's also not the full picture of blood sugar balance. And if you have PCOS too, and you have insulin resistance, you're already at, I feel like you kind of already are a little bit of a a deficit, like you're already kind of trying to like get to baseline and homeostasis. So I think it's super helpful to know how you're responding to different things. And even if you have the data.
Yeah, and with women with PCOS too, like some women have insulin resistance or have poor tolerance to carbohydrate, but even if you have PCOS, it doesn't mean that you're all like everyone's going to respond poorly to carbohydrates or that you are insulin resistant. Right. So maybe you read online that, I was diagnosed with PCOS, I shouldn't eat any carbohydrate. I'm probably insulin resistant. But like, what if you're not? Then you're restricting yourself of these carbohydrates that you think you shouldn't be eating. But ultimately, maybe it's something that your body actually needs and is going to be resourceful for your body. So I think I've seen a ton of women with PCOS utilize the CGM and their glucose look actually awesome. It's like, it's more encouragement for them too. It's like, wow, I can incorporate these carbohydrates into my, diet and feel good and I'm not having poor responses to it. So it can be more liberating in that aspect too.
Yeah. So my final question was, I know the answer, but is it covered by insurance? Or how do you get it? Do you have to need a doctor's prescription, that kind of thing?
So you do when you sign up for our program, we do all that for you. So you don't have to go out and get a prescription and then come to us. Like signing up for our program, our operations team gets that prescription for you. And ultimately you're able to do that. But if you go to, your doctor, you'd have to get prescribed that CGM. So it is kind of difficult to get unless you're going through, a company like NutriSense, for example.
Yeah. And is it covered by insurance?
So it depends. Again, it depends on the insurance, depends on
if you have diabetes or some insurances look at that. Okay.
Yeah. So it depends on, a lot of different factors, but if you were to just go to a Walgreens or something, you'd have to get that prescription from your doctor. Yeah. And we have some, it's hard, but if someone signs up for a program, I have had some people like bring it to their doctor or insurance and they're able to get, some compensation for it, but
reimbursement.
Really just depends. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And my last question or comment with it too is that it includes access to you as a dietitian when you're enrolled.
Yeah, so when you sign up for one of our subscription programs, so our monthly programs, then you get complimentary dietitian support. So we don't expect that everyone understands what's going on right off the bat, understanding, reading the glucose data, what it means. So your dietitian will reach out to you, within the first few days that you start using your sensor, and then they help you to focus on your goals and read your glucose data and just work with any trends that you're seeing in the data and trying to optimize your glucose from there. So it's nice to have the support when there's a lot going on, and so it's nice.
Yeah, and if you have any questions or want to know what to do if a food is, spiking your blood sugar, I found that it was very helpful to have even that support, like you said. Yeah,
definitely. And all the communication is like through our app, so it's all chat based. So and you can chat with your dietitian if you have, like you said, if you have any questions, whatever it is, they can always just help you through whatever you need.
Yeah, and it's the kind of like as little or as much as you want to. Like they're not going to be like texting you all day if you don't have any questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for anyone who's interested, we'll have the link in the description below for NutriSense, and that way you can check it out. Molly, thank you so much for being with us today and for answering all these questions, and just explaining a little bit more about blood sugar, PCOS, and how CGM can be such a helpful tool in the process of healing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.